Football 24/7, Johnny Mac, game day here on week 2 of the NFL preseason. Eagles in Cleveland taking on the Cleveland Browns. I'll get it right to you. I know we don't know how much of the starters we will see today, but what do you know off the top? Can we expect to see 6-7 plays from Jalen Hurts again in the starters, or is that on the back burner?
Nick Sirianni wouldn't confirm, but, I was watching a little bit, unfortunately, of San Francisco, Minnesota last night, and they had joint practices in advance of their preseason game, and they each scratched 27 players. I think that's a good indication of what you're going to see. Not anybody sort of a key contributor. Some guys got to play, Cam Jurgens. I always point out, he's in a position where the Eagles have to get him ready just in case for week 1. The rookies, Jordan Davis, they're going to play a little bit, I would think. Obviously, Nakobe Dean and such. Maybe Grant Calcaterra would be important if he could get out there and play a little bit after missing so much time with the hamstring issue, and he was just able to get back in a limited fashion. Maybe he's cleared with the extra day. But as far as, the key cornerstones, I mean, as I said, Kevin Stefanski flat out said his guys aren't playing, and Nick Sirianni didn't flat out say it, but he intimated it. And he said beforehand, if we get good work in, that's going to be it for the starters. And by all accounts, they got good work in, and most people thought they won the joint practices, which, I don't think that's good or bad. I mean, it's about.
Well, I want to ask you about the joint practices because you weren't down there in Cleveland, but you've seen many joint practices. We talked about it last year, the joint practice champs. I mean, I just think, like you just said off the top about that quarterback in San Francisco, he didn't. I mean, you can go back all the way to his college career. That guy does not have a lot of game.
No, he played one season in college. Yeah.
In San Francisco, they think a joint practice is enough preparation for. How does John McMullen see it? Do you see joint practices as different than a normal training camp week? And how do you compare that to game action, preseason game action, but game action, versus the joint practice?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's in the current modern era, I think it's more valuable, the joint practices, than the preseason games. Maybe in a different era, not as much, where you could practice more and you could have more reps and all that kind of thing. But I think the scripted nature of the practice allows you to work on what you want to work on. So I always say, if you're struggling on third downs, for instance, well, some third downs are going to come up in a game environment, but you're at the mercy of what's going on in that particular game. Each game has sort of its own personality, Jim Schwartz would say. And you don't know what's going to pop up as a coach. You can't script it, but you can script. Hey, I want to work on third downs. I want to work on red zone. I want to work on fourth downs. I want to work on backed up. I want to work on goal line. You can get together with the other head coach, the other team, and work on, we need a period for this. And they'll say, we need a period for this. And you sort of hammer it out. So I think from that standpoint, it is more valuable. And you see it across the league. It's not just the Eagles. I brought up the 49ers. You're right. Trey Lance has less experience than Jalen Hurts. I mean, and you got to see Nate Sudfeld, our old buddy, unstoppable Nate Sudfeld, a ton last night. They're not worried about it, and they shouldn't be worried about it. They're more focused on getting them to week 1 as healthy as possible, and that's what the Eagles are. So they're not going to play the majority of their key players in this particular game or against Miami coming up. That's sort of the new age, and it's a good chance for some of the younger players who are fighting for maybe those back-end spots, 4 or 5 back-end spots, to splash in a live environment, because, being fully live is a little bit different than practice, even when you go with the high intensity. So it's a valuable tool for that back end of the roster, but I don't think it's a valuable tool for the guys who are going to be a big part of it on September 11th.
Yeah, personally, I like it. I think it's a good opportunity. I mean, It's just simple as Jalen Hurts is throwing against opposing teams' cornerbacks versus his own. I mean, just that element of it right there is enough for me to think that you're getting some
Yeah, and
level of
different. Yeah, you're
competitive
right.
play.
Different themes, and
Right.
I brought this up last week on Birds 365. Like Cleveland plays play action. They play the Mike Shanahan, Gary Kubiak offense, heavy on play action. They set it up with two really good running backs, and Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt.
Right.
Although Kareem didn't play, I don't believe he played on Friday. Um, the Eagles don't get to see that. They don't do that. And the Eagles defense, the Eagles offense doesn't work that way. They don't run. They run a different offense. So, and guess what? Week 1, Jared Goff, they run a lot of play action. Week 2, Kirk Cousins, they run even more play action. So it's good to get a look at that in practice, which the Eagles can't do when they're squaring off against each other because they run a different style of offense.
Right, John. Let's get into I know we're probably going to see a lot of second string, third string, probably people fighting for those back 10, 15 roster spots, whatever they are. Do you have key players there? Is there anyone you're interested in? I know you had mentioned Grant Calcaterra earlier. There's some talk about, maybe a Teron Jackson, the safety position, a lot of question marks. Is there anything you're particularly keeping your eye on today? Maybe it's Reed Sinnett after a pretty
Yeah, well,
in
yeah.
game one. Is his spot up for grabs?
Unfortunately, I'm going to have my eyes on Reed Sinnett, but not for a good reason. That's
right.
what it's going to be ugly. Unfortunately, look, the Eagles' strength is not, and they don't have a good third quarterback situation right now. So, who cares? In the large run, they have a good starter and they have a good backup, and that's all you can hope for in the NFL. Even though it would have been nice for Gardner Minshew to have a better summer, but you know what he is, and he's a capable backup.
Like Barrett always says, he's a gamer. He's a game
Yeah,
player.
and maybe he plays this, maybe he starts, maybe he plays a series or two, but the vast majority of the game is going to be Reed Sinnett, and I don't even know. You would think Carson Strong has to play, but they've given him no stinking reps in practice. I mean, I don't know what they're doing with Carson Strong, but either way, if he's out there, it's not going to be good, and Reed's not going to be good. So it's probably going to be some ugly football. So I'm warning Eagles fans on that, but don't get too upset about it. I mean, it's hard to play offense when your quarterback isn't up to par. And unfortunately, if you're going to play your third, fourth string quarterbacks a lot in preseason, you're going to look bad. It's not going to mean anything, So I'm trying to talk people off the building.
Is any of that injury? I remember back you were at practice then at the NovaCare complex. You had sent over some video that we posted on JAKIB Sports, and I mean Carson Strong just did not look good moving around in those drills.
He's got a bad knee.
Is that still part of it? Is it just it's not as much to do as with his quarterback skills as it is about allowing him to get healthy and get ready to play at an NFL level?
I've heard that thought that the Eagles are hiding him from the rest of the league, trying to get him through practice squad. Maybe it is the injury part of it. Look, that's kind of baked in. He's got a really bad knee. That's why he didn't get drafted. But he was supposed to have this great arm talent, and I haven't seen that. Now, I don't know if that's a lack of confidence or because he hasn't had success, but you sort of haven't seen that as well at practice. So I find it hard to believe, the 16 man, the practice squad is 16 deep now. So you can keep basically anybody who you want to keep. And I haven't seen anything from Carson Strong to make the Eagles want to keep him unless it is what you said. Maybe they think he needs to get a year to get his knee as healthy as possible, or the less likely scenario, they want to hide him from anybody else. I mean, I was talking about San Francisco. I mean, people make fun of Nate Sudfeld, but he knows how to play.
Yeah, he does.
Brock Purdy, I think they had playing. He was a 7th round pick, and he looks like he has some ability, and he could do. Now Minnesota's backup, it was a disaster. So maybe there are other teams looking for second, third string quarterbacks. So make of it what you want, but it hasn't been impressive for Carson Strong this summer. But as far as players to watch, I mentioned Calcaterra because I hope he can get out there because the Eagles have to make that's a difficult decision because they're keeping Dallas Goedert and Jack Stoll, but you need a third tight end. And right now, to me, Noah Tungiai has been one of the most impressive back end to the roster players. Guys who started, guys who started whatever it was, the first day of camp, July 28th, I forget, everything runs together. He was an afterthought to me. I said, well, Noah Tungiai, he's got no shot. And now, to me, he deserves to make the team. Now, there's still time to screw that up. He could play poorly today. He could play poorly in Miami. Calcaterra could come on. But Calcaterra's got to prove he can get on the field and play, number one. You mentioned some of those old guys, Teron, old draft picks from last year, not old, second-year draft picks, late-round draft picks. They've all impressed. Teron Jackson, Patrick Johnson, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Those guys are making the football team. I mean, they've been impressive. So to me, it's like we'll use Patrick Johnson. It seemed like he was battling with Kyron Johnson, who was a draft pick this year for that backup to Hassan Reddick. Well, he's lapped Kyron Johnson. So how do you keep Kyron Johnson? He's a player to look at. So just little things like that. And probably, definitely look at the defensive backfield because they need clarity at the backup safety position. Looks like Kayvon Wallace kind of rose from the dead in Cleveland a little bit.
I read that report somewhere.
The backup corners, as good as the starting corners look, the backup corners might look that bad. I mean, I don't trust any of them. So you have Slay, you have Bradbury, who obviously aren't going to play, and Bradbury's nicked up anyway. Avante's probably not going to play. They moved Josiah Scott to safety pretty much by this point. So, whether it's the new kid, Ugo Amadi, or Zach McPherson, Zach's going to make the team, but he's got to start playing a little bit better. And then the Mac McCains, the Kerry Vincents, the Tay Gowans of the world, they are bubble players, and they're probably leaning towards their bubble being burst unless they start playing a little bit better.
How big is the drop off across the roster? I mean, it's for a second there when you were talking, it almost sounded like it was a major credit to Howie Roseman, where those 16 practice squad players, whoever doesn't get to the 53, is it going to be a poach fest from the Eagles? I mean, it seems like we have a lot of talent on the back.
I don't.
Or is that not really true?
I don't think so. We go through this every year. Everybody seems to have a selective memory. You might lose a player. They lost Noah Tungiai, but the average is less than 2 per team, far less. Some teams don't get anybody picked up because you have to think about it this way. These teams all around the country, 31 other teams, they've been working with their young players the entire summer, the entire offseason to develop them. And they would rather default to them, guys who know the system, know what they're trying to accomplish, than go pluck somebody who might have maybe a tiny bit more of an upside, even if they do, but they'd be starting from scratch again. And just, and generally, when you're picking up somebody on not generally, when you pick up somebody on waivers, that's to put them on the 53. You got to put them on the 53 at least at the start for 3 games, and then you could waive them and get them on the practice squad. So you're making a decision. All right, we're just not good enough on the 53. When you pick somebody up on waivers, and that's a whole different conversation than the practice squad. And the vast majority guys are going to default to the young players they have in their particular camps, whoever that is, whether it's the Eagles or the Cleveland Browns or the Miami Dolphins, all the way down the list.
Got it. Let's talk running back, John. Kareem Hunt. He's been the talk of the town. You put something up on the JAKIB Sports website yesterday. Cleveland not looking to trade him. But let's keep it on the Eagles running backs. Past Miles Sanders, who's dealing with some injuries right now, who do we expect to see today? Is Kennedy Brooks going to get out there? Are they still looking to bring someone in to bolster that room? Because that room doesn't look that great to me.
No, it doesn't. That's been, I think, if I had to pick somebody who was the most underwhelming player of the summer, when you sort of put everything together, expectations of the fan base, and not,
The whole
I'm
pile.
not talking about guys who aren't supposed to make the team. Kenny Gainwell is supposed to be a good player. So from that perspective, he's been a disappointment. He has had a bad summer. Dropping the football, that's supposed to be the strength of his. I think he's dropped it more than Miles. Think about that. Miles has that reputation. Yeah, they need help there. I don't think you can go into a 17-game season with only 3 running backs. And I don't think Jason Huntley or Kennedy Brooks deserve to make this team. I expect, both to be on the practice squad if they want them back. It's not going to be an issue. And maybe they can develop down the road. But
what is it with the Eagles and these small running backs? Like, why do we go for
DeAndre Torrey, I got to bring him. He hasn't, they brought him in late, but he's also very small. And, today will be big for him.
Brian Robinson. That was who I wanted in the draft. I'm a Bama guy, but I just thought, boom, big guy, can tote the rock as many times.
Yeah, we all did. We all looked at, but all of us who did mock drafts.
Stephen McMullen in our comments. We need a true running back, not a little guy that's always hurt. I agree. I mean, I think it would help Jalen immensely, regardless of.
Well, Miles isn't a small running back. I mean, he's not.
But he's not on the field enough to be an effective, consistent back for the quarterback to rely
on. Miles is a good player. Like I've gone through this.
You talk about this all the time.
Yeah, it's amazing to me how it's flipped, because he's Eagles fans went gaga over him and way overrated him after his rookie season. And I always say I got so much hate for saying that Christian McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook were the 2 players. I said, don't compare Miles Sanders to those guys. I get killed for it. And I'm like, I never got an apology, Zander, I always say. But, he's not that level of player, but he's a good player. And now everybody's like, oh, Miles Sanders. Yeah, I mean, he's played 3 seasons. His rookie season, he played every game. And then he got banged up a little bit. He missed, I think, 4 games and then 5 games. All right. You'd prefer him to be out there, but that's why you need 4 backs. That's why you need more depth. He's dealing with the hamstring now, but that's completely precautionary. Completely.
Right.
It's not
overblown right now.
Yeah. They're expecting him. That's the whole point. They want him to be completely healthy for September 11th. And if he's out there, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. He's a good player. You can't have a great player at every position. When you have A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith, Miles Sanders is fine to be your running back. The key is he's got to be out there. And I understand the concern because of the past 2 seasons, but I wouldn't worry about Miles Sanders at all. And he's got a chip on his shoulder too, because he hears the turn from where Eagles fans were gaga over him, and now they dismiss him. He knows it as well. So I think that's going to help him as well. Chip on his shoulder in a contract year.
Well, here's my question. Do you like him because you think he fits how the Eagles like to use a multi-running back style? Because Miles is not an every down back that can be relied on multiple. Now, there's not that many of those backs in the league.
There's none. There's Jonathan Taylor and there's Derrick Henry. and that's it. That's it. And even, Jonathan Taylor, I mean, you think about where Nick came from, they like to use Hines as a third down back. So really you're down to one and when he's healthy and Derrick Henry. And Dalvin Cook has Alexander Madison and
Yeah, so that's the league approach now.
yeah. So I don't have a problem with that. I think Eagles fans, not you, but Eagles fans should be more worried about Kenny Gainwell handling his part of it than Miles Sanders handling his part of it. I would be more concerned about that.
The combination of those two still doesn't give me the thing I'm looking for, the bruiser back that takes some of the weight.
Yeah, but that's Jalen Hurts.
You don't want that on Jalen Hurts. You want him to be your quarterback and to be healthy and to not be in those situations, regardless of how talented he is in that. I mean, how much do you want your quarterback to be that main cog in the running game? I know we need like that's been talked about a lot this summer, to not limit Jalen's skill sets. Just because you want him to throw doesn't mean you should take out the legs. I completely agree with that, but I mean,
here's what I say about that. Jordan Howard, where's Jordan Howard going to be this year? I ask Eagles fans. Nowhere else. Nobody else is signing him. The Eagles could call him up today and he'd be here tomorrow. Nobody else cares about Jordan Howard. Jordan Howard's success is wholly dependent on Jalen Hurts. Wholly. The reason he succeeded is because everybody was worried about stopping Jalen Hurts. In other words, if you have Gardner Minshew back there, and or any quarterback, Jared Goff will go week one, and he's just turning around and handing the ball off to Jordan Howard, even with this offensive line, it's not going to be that successful. Jalen is that +1 in the running game. He's the best in the NFL at it. That's not named Lamar Jackson. Teams have to account for it. And that makes things easier for not only Jordan Howard when he was here, but Miles Sanders, Kenny Gainwell, Boston Scott. He makes things easier. So that's baked into this entire thing. Like last year, who led the NFL in yards per carry? It was Jonathan Taylor. All right, that makes sense. Best running back in football, rushing champ. It was Nick Chubb. That makes sense. Nick Chubb, top 5 running back. And by the way, he has Kareem Hunt, another example.
Those are 2 dudes that I was talking about. I would love both of those guys.
And well, the problem with that is, remember, Cleveland just lost to Deshaun Watson for 11 games. So that's what they told me. No, we want him more now.
Yeah,
we need him more.
Week. Yeah.
Then maybe there'd be more of a conversation if you had Deshaun Watson, but he's gone for the foreseeable future. So that makes it even more difficult to get Kareem Hunt out of Cleveland. But he makes these, and the third guy was Miles Sanders. Nick Chubb, Jonathan Taylor, Miles Sanders, 5.5 yards per game, but per carry. Now, I just said Miles is a good player. He's a good player. He's not Jonathan Taylor. He's not Nick Chubb.
So I guess the committee approach is the way to go there. So how does that fill out? I mean, how do you see it filling out? If it's Miles, I think Boston Scott and Kenny Gainwell are the round out, but I haven't heard much about Boston Scott this summer. I know, is he dealing with some injuries? And then you've talked about how Kenny Gainwell has been a major letdown. So how does that position ultimately round out after Miles Sanders?
Well, right now it's Kenny and Boston. And Boston's fine as a backup. I think they're going to pick up another back on waivers, and we'll see at the cut to 53. But, they picked up Jason. Yeah, they picked up Jason Huntley on waivers at the cut down, and he, that's going to be a back end of the roster guy. So your key guys are Miles and Kenny and Boston, and Boston's proven to be a good utility player, I call him, but you don't want to play in 17 games. It's going to be like the start of last year when it was the committee was only two people. It was Miles and Kenny. That's it. That's how they're going to start the season. And Miles is going to be the lead back, and Kenny is going to be the third down back, the hurry up back. And this is the most bizarre point to me, the goal line back. Now,
It's Jalen Hurts based on what you said.
Yeah, it is. It is Jalen Hurts because no, neither is a goal line back, and that's what you're talking about with the Jordan Howard presence. And that's where they're clearly leaning on Jalen Hurts, and that's why. Again, we talked about it for Jordan Howard, but if you look at the success of Boston Scott and Kenny Gainwell in the red zone, it's because of the presence of Jalen Hurts. If you leave those two guys to their own devices in the red zone, it's because of Jalen Hurts.
Let's shift over to John, to the wide receiver, the back end of the wide receiver to close it out. I like Jalen Reagor. The fans have turned on him, and I get why, but he's only been here for 2 years, which really is not that long of a time. I'd like to see him be, I know it's low, and our expectations are now much lower for him, but I'd like to see him be that wide receiver 4 or 5 in that range. I know it's getting tough down there with Pascal. He's looked good. How do you see the bottom of the wide receivers? And then also, who do you expect to see today? Who are you watching today in the game? Is there a battle there, or is that kind of set in stone too?
I think it's kind of set in stone unless the Eagles trade Jalen Reagor, which is still a possibility. Certainly,
seeing that a lot. I don't know if that's because people are hearing things or what, but
yeah, I mean, there's no secret that Jalen would prefer a change of scenery. The Eagles would prefer a change of scenery, but they're not going to give him away because he does have talent. And they believe that. And nobody wants to think about A.J. Brown getting hurt or Devontae Smith getting hurt. But if they do, at that point, it would be nice to have somebody with the talent.
I think Jalen Reagor has talent. Like when I see
Jalen, he does. He does.
I see talent. I see a guy. He's built. He's strong. He looks like an NFL football player. I think if he can bring it together, I 100% think it's in there. I don't know if he can bring it out of him, but I do think it's in there.
Yeah, it is in there. I mean, you see the one-handed catch everybody remembers from OBJ. He's tremendously athletic. He's got a ridiculous vertical leap. Everything you want an NFL receiver, he has. He just lost his confidence, and that's a big thing. But and that's why I think it's more likely if he does find it, it's probably going to be in another city than here. But when the Eagles talk about their offense, this is the key thing to me. They don't talk about Jalen Reagor. They talk, and understandably, they talk about AJ and Devontae Smith. But then they go to Quez Watkins and Zach Pascal, as he mentioned. And Zach, by the way, has been great since he came back from the food poisoning. But those guys don't have Jalen Reagor's talent, that baseline level of talent that Jalen Reagor has. So long story short, to your original question, those are the top 5, and Jalen would be the punt returner, the kick returner, if he's here. If he's not here, though, that opens the floodgates, and there's a lot of competition. Deion Kane has been good in practice, but he wasn't good in the preseason game. Britton Covey, a lot of people have talked about him as a potential returner.
I don't love Reagor as much as I just talked about wanting him to fill out. I don't love him in that return.
Nobody does. But here's the problem, Zander. You're not keeping somebody.
I know, right? You're not going to take a 53-man spot just to put someone over.
You got to be able to do something else. And I don't know if Britton Covey can do that. The other guys, though, I mean, John Hightower, it seems like he's been here forever. He hasn't, but he just doesn't stand out. Devin Allen, who, has Olympic dreams and probably should press pause and go back to his Olympic dreams. I mean, if you're going to be honest, obviously, Greg Ward is old, reliable, but he's going to catch the football, but he doesn't have the athleticism to stand out. So after that top 5, Jalen Reagor kind of falls off pretty dramatically. But I would say the 6th best receiver is Deion Kane. If you want to add the return game into it, maybe Britton Covey can find a way there. But again, he's so small. It's hard to imagine him being a competent slot player.
He is a small dude. I mean, he looks like a regular guy out there on the NFL field.
It's like Jake Elliott. You know, all the security people think he's the kicker. All the fans at practice, they think he's the kicker.
I don't know if he has a realistic shot or not, or he's just been one of the fun camp names. All right, I don't know if anything's come in on the starters playing. I don't think we'll see much.
Yeah, we're not going to see.
I don't think we'll see much of them. But any final notes, John, for the people as you're thinking of what you're going and what's done?
Don't get upset if the offense doesn't look great. As I said, that's what happens in preseason football when you have quarterbacks, the 3rd, 4th string quarterbacks who struggle. I'd be more focused on the defense, particularly the back 7, because you want to find those backup corners and those backup safeties. Who's going to stand out amongst that group? That to me is the most interesting part of what's going on. And then the rookies, you're going to get some Nakobe Dean and probably some Cam Jurgens, maybe even some Jordan Davis. So
yeah, I love watching Jordan, so that'll be good.
Yeah, maybe, but don't hold your breath.
He's already kind of elevating into that side.
Yeah, he already has. So
yeah, right. Well, real quick on that point, the one thing I was wondering, and we just talked about Reagor, they had him in sweatpants and shorts in the second half of game 1. I mean, if he's fighting for spot 5 or 6, shouldn't he be out there?
Talking about Reagor?
Yeah.
Well, he's not. I mean, he's 5. He's 5 if he's here. He's not fighting anybody. The only question on Jalen Reagor is he traded or not? Not is he going to make the football team? He's going to make the football team if he's here. So people worried about that. People hoping for that, give it up. He's going to be here.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Like I said, he's got much less pressure on him. He doesn't need to be that guy. So I'm good with that. All right, John, it's a good pregame show right there. We just did preparing for Eagles-Browns week 2 of the preseason. I guess they all kind of had the game in practice between.
They had the real game in practice. It is what it is, though. These preseason games, necessary evil, but we're at the point where it'd be nice to be playing real football. But a couple more weeks.
340 people watching us for the preseason game, so we got a passionate fan base. They love this no matter who's playing. So it's good, John. We'll do a quick halftime report, get our thoughts on the first half, and then we'll be back for another brief post game show. Enjoy the first half, my friend. I'll see you at halftime.
All right, thanks.